when you start working out and eating better and getting outside a little more. You lose
Exactly.
weight.
Right. Exactly. And that was my experience. And where I really felt stuck was I was in that what I call the go, go, go mentality for so long. And I've actually started to see a shift in bringing this into my coaching as well from having done this work myself. It's the reminder that, especially for women, because I see this a lot with females, especially with parents who also have jobs and businesses, there is this pressure that you create for yourself that you have to do it all. And I have been this person for a very long time, that high achieving mentality, and it wires your brain to make you think it's never enough.
Let's link up with Krysta on the FYX. She's a wellness coach with a focus on mental well-being and physical strength.
Hello there, FYX listeners. Welcome back to our latest episode of the FYX podcast. I'm your host, Krysta Huber. If you're new here, welcome. So excited to have you and welcome you to the show. And I have something a little different for everybody today. If you've been tuning into our last few episodes with some awesome coaches that I've had the pleasure of interviewing with, and honestly, really just having conversations with back and forth about people who get it, people who are helping their clients really design a lifestyle that prioritizes their health and wellness, but also prioritizes them living their best lives. Well, we're going to keep that going this week, but this time I am going to be in the hot seat for this episode. So my friend Adam, who came on the show not too long ago, we actually did a podcast swap, if you remember. He has a fantastic podcast that I urge you to listen to. It's linked down in the show notes. Go check it out. If you like the FYX, you should absolutely subscribe to his show. It's called Talkin Fit. And I thought, why not bring my episode with him, where I was a guest on his show, over to the FYX podcast. I often forget that as we get new listeners who join us, or maybe some people who don't necessarily follow me on Instagram or haven't been following me on Instagram for a while, don't really know the whole story of how the Fitness FYX came to be, why we're so passionate about coaching the way that we do. And this is a good episode to give you a little bit of a sneak peek into some of our philosophies and strategies that we teach inside of our coaching program. So it's a great one if you don't really know how we got here, or you just want to get an understanding of what the Fitness FYX really stands for. Adam and I went into a lot of detail about mindset and habits, and really understanding how important it is to make your decisions based off of what's going to help you feel good. And from there, see fat loss as a byproduct of that. Lots of useful tactics and perspectives for my ladies out there who are in the group fitness space. I talk a lot about my journey in group fitness and how that influenced my start in the fitness industry and eventually my focus on nutrition. What to do if you are somebody who is a group fitness lover, how you can tailor your nutrition goals or your nutrition approach to that style of training, or maybe decide if it's truly the best for what you're looking to accomplish. And by the way, the Fitness FYX can help you figure that out too. And just an all-around great opportunity for us to continue to emphasize what we stand for here in helping women who are out here doing the most, doing it all, and often doing those things at the expense of taking care of themselves. So as we head into this weekend, which happens to be Memorial Day weekend, and for my Jersey Shore friends out there who are listening, we all know that is the unofficial official start to summer. I have a little question for you, a little homework for you guys to sit with and reflect on. How are you feeling as you potentially head to the beach this weekend? Maybe pull out some warmer weather clothing. I don't know if our swim suits will be in the cards just yet. At the time that I'm recording this intro, it's looking like we're supposed to have good weather this weekend, but we'll see. Are you looking forward to it? Or are you saying to yourself, I wish I had taken a different approach for the last few months, for the past year, whatever amount of time, to be excited going into the summer season? Because I want you to be excited going into the summer season, to look forward to spending time with friends and family, getting more time outside, maybe even being a little more physically active. But I also recognize that this summer season typically comes with more social events, which means more meals out, which usually means more alcohol. And for so many people, that's a story of setbacks. That doesn't have to be your story for this summer, and we can help you navigate it. We do also happen to have a few spots opening up for the month of June on our coaching rosters, both Kate and I, because we have a couple of brides who are officially reaching their wedding dates this coming month. And that means they have graduated from the Fitness Fix program. I can't wait to share their progress pictures. Can't spill the tea on that yet because I want to do the transformation photos from their original dress fittings when they first found their dresses to the big day. And I'm super, super excited for that. But that means that these ladies have truly embodied what it means to make these habits their lifestyle and are ready to execute them on their own. And that leaves a chance for one of you listeners to join us. So head over to the show notes or to the link in my Instagram bio at the Krysta Huber, fill out our one-on-one coaching application. I would love to chat with you. Just a conversation, see if we're a fit on both sides, and get you inside of the Fitness Fix so that you can have the best summer ever. And with that, here's me and Adam from his podcast, Talkin Fit.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thank you for listening to Talkin Fit. I have an awesome guest today, Krysta Huber, who is also an online coach who has been an in-person coach in the past. We've both been in the business for over a decade. She has a very successful online coaching business, and she works with clients who I believe would fit my typical audience, females who have tried a ton of diets and a ton of workout programs and, are overwhelmed with a lot of information and trying to figure out what works. So I'm really excited to have her on today. Krysta, thanks for hopping on.
Thank you. I'm super excited. I know we were just talking before we hit record, and you don't realize how connected this whole world is. So I love the opportunity of social media for some of the things it doesn't do great that I'm sure we'll get into in this conversation, Adam. One of the things that it does so well is it makes the world a lot smaller and us being able to connect and interact.
Yeah, no, it's super cool. I didn't even realize that you lived in New Jersey, which is cool. I don't know why I assumed you lived in Florida. because you had put something about living by the beach. So I was like, oh, she's got to live in like Florida because you were Eastern time. And that's the only beach I was like, oh, that's the beach. But New Jersey, living by the Jersey Shore has got to be cool, but it's also kind of like a tease because there's like 8 months out of the year where it's probably freezing.
It is a tease, but I have to say, I kind of love the beach in those cold times of year. Like today, on the day that we're recording this, it happens to be like 50 plus degrees and we're getting into spring. Like we're getting closer. We're getting that tease right now of like, hey, summer is around the corner, which is exciting. But there's just something for me in my experience at just I lived in Charlotte for 5 years, which is totally landlocked. And it's funny because people who live there are always like, oh, Charlotte's so awesome. It's so close to the beach and the mountains. And I'm like, I grew up in New Jersey, in North Jersey. My definition of being close to the beach is like 42 minutes away, max.
Yeah.
And now I'm only 3 seconds and I can walk there, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's such like a sense of peace here that in the winter, you feel that even more so because there's not that many other people around. And I kind of secretly like love going to the beach all bundled up, but I am looking forward to the summer weather.
It's awesome to find the positives in it. I live in upstate New York, so I'm not by a beach. So in the winter when it's really cold and I would assume it gets colder up here than it does in Jersey, especially when you're near the water.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes you'll go for months and like barely see the sun and it's brutal. So
we've had some of that this year. I feel like, do you feel like that's happened a lot in the last 3 months?
Oh yeah. Every winter, I don't even know why I live in New York. And I was telling you before we start recording, I still do some in-person coaching out of my garage. So like if I have a 5 a.m. client the day after it snowed, I'm shoveling my driveway like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, just to make sure that they can get there, right?
In 0 degree weather. So like there's days where I'm like, what am I doing in New York still? But with our son, we are very consistent and passionate about making sure like he gets outdoor time, even if it's cold. So since I've had a son, I've been outside in the winter almost every day. And it makes you a little bit more like you just handle it a little bit better. I think when people are cooped up inside for months on end, that's when you go stir crazy. But because I'm forcing myself to get outside every day because I know it's important for him, it made the winter a little bit more bearable this year.
That's really cool to hear. And I'm going to try not to go in my podcaster mode because I have questions for you about that, but we'll save it for when you come on my
I'm
podcast.
excited to do that. Yes.
Yeah.
But you
But
can ask any questions. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
think it's really interesting for you to highlight that point just around how you've changed some of your routines as a parent. But it also really brings me back to something that I've been working on for myself recently in just examining your relationship with yourself and really looking at the whole inner child's conversation. And I would
you're
imagine
speaking my language.
I don't have kids yet, so I haven't had the chance to experience this, and I'm doing that work for myself. But it's probably really cool for you to get back to some things that you didn't realize were so much a part of your childhood. And now getting to see that through your son's eyes, I think is probably really amazing and is a good reminder in the power of being present. And I'm assuming that's what you were getting at and just saying like you're approaching it in a different way because the value you have behind going outside is to also teach him to have that time outside and how great that is for your body too.
Yeah, and well, it's funny that you bring that up because a lot of the way my coaching has kind of shifted in the last couple of years is I have started doing a lot more talks with clients about childhood traumas, inner child, like all that stuff. And it's actually a big shift that I'm in the process of moving my coaching towards is almost bordering that line of fitness and kind of mental health help.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to hear you say that you've been doing that work because that's what led me to help my clients with it was me doing that work to prevent passing on my shit to my son. And when you dig into it, it just crazy how it trickles into other areas of your life. And one of my big struggles since having a son was being present because I have my own business. I'm the provider. Like there's that stress. So I think that resonates with a lot of the people who are listening because they are open to that conversation if they're listening to the show because they've heard me talking about it before. And I think a lot of the people who listen to my show are also busy parents who they may feel like they have trouble being present. So is there anything that you've picked up while doing that work that kind of helps you be more present throughout the week, throughout the day?
Oh my gosh, yes, I love this. First, I'm going to say if anyone's a non-believer on the connection to this between fitness and nutrition and focusing on presence, focusing on your nervous system, the biggest change I've made in my life since the start of 2024 is committing to this type of work and doing this type of inner healing and deep work. And I lost 10 pounds. And that is not to say that it's a domino effect. And I want to make that
it's a side effect.
Clear.
Side effect. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I didn't lose the 10 pounds just because I was like, oh, hell yeah, I'm going to do all this stuff that gets bucketed into the woo-woo shit category. Right. Like, and I think I love hearing that you're doing this type of work with your clients, that you've done this type of work with your clients too, because it's allowing us to rebrand it as a really, really necessary part of your overall health versus putting it into that woo-woo bucket over there. Right.
Yeah, well, there's because I think again the big mistake people make is they have two separate buckets. They have like this woo-woo holistic mindset bucket, and I'm like the least woo-woo person there is. So like when I talk to clients about it, I always tell them like, listen, like this isn't like woo-woo stuff. This isn't like you have to sit in a room with candles lit and say Like this is actually focusing on how to connect the two things. But you know, they have one bucket which is like, oh, the woo-woo stuff and mindset, motivation. Then they have this other bucket which is weight loss and, you know, improving their body. And they don't ever see the connection between the two. And one of the processes I take my clients through when they first come on board with me is taking them through an exercise where they actually have to dig deep in their mind, picture like the ideal version of themselves, like if they were their healthiest, most confident rock star version of themselves. And what are the core values of that person? And what sort of decisions and habits would that person make in everyday life? And what you see is once they list that out, it's never, well, I cut carbs or I fast or I do cold plunges. It's always basic stuff. Oh, I'd probably get outside more. I'd probably eat better. I'd probably work out. And what do you think happens when you start working out and eating better and getting outside a little more? You lose
weight. Right. Exactly. And that was my experience. And where I really felt stuck was I was in that what I call the go, go, go mentality for so long. And I've actually started to see a shift in bringing this into my coaching as well, from having done this work myself, it's the reminder that, especially for women, because I see this a lot with females, especially with parents who also have jobs and businesses, there is this pressure that you create for yourself that you have to do it all. And I have been this person for a very long time, that high achieving mentality, and it wires your brain to make you think it's never enough. And it's like, at what point is it going to be enough? Or at what point, in my case, are you going to realize, hey, I'm doing so many things and I have a lot of success to show for myself in my business and that growth, and that's amazing. But when I look at some of the things it was costing me, it was actually costing me my own health. I was sitting there explaining to my clients, hey, try this. How can we implement these habits? And even with having multiple coaches in my corner, I wasn't always practicing what I was preaching. Yeah. And it really took me actually creating space. And that's to answer your original question. What are some of the things I've done on a consistent basis to actually start to see that domino effect? One of it is just not overpacking my schedule so much. And
it's hard to do too.
It's hard. It's very really hard. Difficult. Exactly. And being more thoughtful about what to say yes to versus when to say no. And really taking this whole idea of, forget the idea of trying to do it all and be the woman who's doing the most. Let's do it better. Like, you have every right to do it better. And that's a message that I really want women specifically, and parents too. It shouldn't even be specific to females. So I love that you were doing that. And I love what you said about not necessarily coming off as somebody who would do that more spiritual work, because I don't think it should be limited to different types of people. We all need this, but it can feel very inaccessible.
Yeah, I think I try to explain the way I had it explained to me this way, and then I explain it to clients this way, and it's a weird analogy, but we have all these emotions kind of piling up, and what tends to happen is that we just push them down, and we keep focusing on these external things. And I was the analogy is picture that you really had to poop, but you were so afraid of seeing poop come out of your body that you just avoided pooping and you just kept holding it in. The problem would just get worse and worse and worse. And I'm like, that's
such a good analogy. It really is.
Yeah. It's people don't want to deal with this shit and they don't want to see it. So then they just avoid it. And what happens is it creates this cycle of, you start to believe that your value, your worth, your identity is any of these external things that are usually tied to you providing something of value to others. So it's a transactional relationship. So if you're really successful in your business, what does that mean? Okay, you're helping your team make a living. You're helping your clients get results. You're building up. Again, this was true for me. I don't know if it's true for you, but you're proving wrong all the people who doubted you.
That was so me.
Yeah, you have the chip on your shoulder, and all this stuff. And what happens is, along the way, you start chasing this one result. And for a lot of people, it's generally work related. They pack their schedules, but along the way, you break a lot of promises to yourself. And then when you break all those promises to yourself, that lowers your confidence. And if you're not confident and you don't feel good about yourself, and now the only good thing in your life, perceived good thing, is this external thing that you've got, which is a career or business. You're just okay, but then you just start going harder at that, and you start taking less and less care of yourself. You don't see yourself as the valuable commodity that you are. With my business, to be honest with you, my highest income year was also the year that I was probably put on 15 unwanted pounds. I wasn't working out as hard. I was eating out and having more alcohol than I wanted, which for me was probably drinking 2 nights a week and having 2 or 3 drinks each time. But that was a lot for me. And then also felt emotionally disconnected from my wife, emotionally disconnected from my son, but I was making more money. But again,
that's the question of, for what, right?
But for me, it was I had the story of, well, I'm the provider. I'm giving them the life they want. But I was also not mentally there. I was so stressed. And today, for example, we had this podcast scheduled. I woke up early. I had clients. I've done work today, but I also took my son to gymnastics. I also went with my wife to her midwife appointment, awesome. and stuff like that. I was able to do those things. But for me, the work is in those moments when I'm at gymnastics and when I'm at the midwife place, actually being able to say like, this is okay, that I'm
Yep.
not behind a laptop, that I'm
Yeah.
not working. Do you
Yeah.
find that that's happened to you before? And we can get into fitness, but this all
100%.
ties in.
Yeah, 100%. And I hear this a lot from clients too. And I really appreciate you being so candid about that, because I found it just in us talking about going to the Real Coaches Summit. I had made the decision to have my clients not complete their check-ins this week because I was going to be away Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And realistically, I had this like tug of war with myself for a minute. And I talked about it with my assistant coach to just come together as a team to make this choice of like, wait a second, we are going to this conference to
A
actually
business
become
conference.
better coaches. Yes.
Yes.
It wasn't even like I was taking personal time. And if I wanted to take personal time, that is also okay too.
Yeah.
But I was still sitting there like rationalizing in my brain, like, oh, I shouldn't do that to them. Like, what if they need anything? It was a very simple, hey guys, no check-ins this week. With the time that you are now getting back, this gives you the opportunity to maybe change something up in your meal prep, try a new recipe, get in an extra 15-minute walk or something like that, showing them that this is actually to their benefit because it's encouraging more autonomy. Because at the end of the day, I'm not looking to keep my clients inside of my program forever and ever, unless we are evolving together to where they have different goals, they need different strategies, they need different approaches. But my number one priority is to get them to a place where this isn't, oh, the Fitness Fix told me to operate this way. It's client Sally truly inherently sees herself as this person who wakes up every day and makes the time to get her training in, to hit her macros, chooses to track her food, because all of it's a choice, right?
Yeah. It's making those little decisions
Yep.
that align with that ideal version of you.
Right, exactly. So I love that you take your clients through that exercise. I think that's so important. It makes me so excited to hear that other coaches are doing that too, because often I will work with people who their previous experience from working with a coach was, oh, the person just sent me macros and every week they would adjust them. And it's like, that's not coaching. There's so much more to this. And for me, I've been able to actually use myself as an example to clients to say, hey, it's okay. And not only is it okay for you to take the time you need to slow things down, to be a little bit more present, it's going to take work, to your point, to get comfortable with that. I have worked really hard in the last 3 months to put better boundaries around my phone, to the point where I've actually found that I am more productive because I put my phone in do not disturb, can get through periods of doing more deep work in a shorter amount of time. And what's the thing that I would normally in the past kind of let slide is I wouldn't allow myself to spend time with friends because I would be convinced that I had to work on the weekend to continue to maintain what I was building for the Fitness Fix. Or I would skip the gym because I'd be like, oh, I just can't get off my computer. And that started to become a compounding choice that very similar to what you shared, putting on additional weight, being a lot more reactive with my food choices. And that's what led me to eat out more, because it was more of like I've been doing this thing on my computer for a few hours. I don't want to break my groove. Let me just grab whatever's available to me. And then ultimately I started telling myself this story of I don't have enough time. And yet it was building into what you were saying about like feeling guilty about being present and like making that choice. And yet when I've talked myself through it's okay to be present and take this time and remember that like, hey, I built the flexibility of this business and my schedule that if I want to go get a manicure on a Wednesday, I can do that. And I'm allowed to make that time for myself, and I don't have to feel bad about it either.
No, that the one thing, like looking back, with your experience and my experience too, that I'm actually glad that I went through that is because it made me way more empathetic when clients would say, it's just hard to get up from my desk. I'm working all day and like I don't have time. Because as a trainer, you know, you kind of have it in the back of your mind, like, oh, you can make time, you can make time. But then when I found when I was an in-person trainer, I literally got to a gym at like 4:45 in the morning and was sometimes there till 7, 8 o'clock at night. So you're back to back with clients, but like you would have a gap in the middle of the day. Didn't have a kid. I wasn't married. So like during that gap, I would work out and I was literally in a fucking gym. So like I was like, oh, okay, like my lifestyle was easier. Once I grew my online business and I was working from a laptop more, I started to realize yeah, this is fucking hard. Like, it is fucking hard for like someone who isn't. I've been working out for 18 years. Like for someone who hasn't been doing that, it must be difficult to be like, I'm gonna break my workflow, go cook lunch, sit down when I know I've got messages and emails
Yep.
piling up, and then I'm gonna make time to do a workout that, again, if someone's more beginner level, they're like, I don't enjoy working out. It doesn't even feel enjoyable right now.
Yeah.
So seeing that side, like now when a client tells me like, hey, I'm at a desk all day and it's really hard for me to do this, I'm like, yeah, I get it. It is, but we're gonna figure out how to make you do it.
Hmm.
And for a lot of people, it's just creating, like you said, creating that identity first of I'm someone who does something active, but then also again with coaching, I'm sure you find this too. It's not even like assigning the foods or the calories. It's actually taking a look at a client's schedule
Yeah.
and then
It's
going, hey,
talking about time
listen,
management.
yeah, can you
Yeah.
can you find? I had a client recently who I said, listen, if you mix if you mix a scoop of protein with 4 ounces of water and shake it up and drink it and have a banana with it, it will take you 45 seconds to eat. Can you find 45 seconds in your day? And then she was like, yeah, I can find 45 seconds in my day. And then
Yeah.
like she started doing it.
Right. I don't know if you saw my post that I did last week that was like I've lost over a pound in the last week, and these are meals that took me less than 7 minutes to put together. Like,
Yeah, that's
and I
crazy.
showed it, all the different hacks, and I'm putting that in quotes because they don't have to be hacks. They can just
Yeah.
be how you operate. And where I think it gets even harder for people is the confusion and the mixed messaging. And I'll go back to what I said at the beginning to answer what I don't like about social media. It can be great for connecting people like us, but where it really feeds into people thinking they're not enough or they're not doing things correctly or that it has to be more complicated than it is that you literally open Instagram and you see this food blogger who's making this macro friendly recipe and it has so many different ingredients and steps and her kitchen is perfect and she's drinking a glass of wine while she's doing it. And then it's like, that's the expectation of what the potential client or client thinks they have to do or should do in order to get the result. Well, I'm going to let everybody in on a little secret. I have a client who is a food blogger, a very successful food blogger. And she told me when we first started working together, she was like, I hate to admit this. And I was like, this is a normal thing to say. But she was like, I hate to admit that some nights all I want to have for dinner is chips and salsa. And you want to know why? Because she's been in her kitchen all day. She doesn't want to clean it up one more time. And it was
Hmm.
very much a moment of like, when people joke about celebrities and they say like, oh, the stars are just like us.
Yeah.
It was one of those kind of moments. And I said to her, I was like, I really appreciate that you said that. And I want you to know there's hundreds of people who would appreciate hearing that from you because it humanizes it, obviously. And I really am on a mission to show people that being busy doesn't have to be a death sentence for your health. We
Yeah.
can go about this in a much smarter way. And in the long run, the beautiful part about all of it, just to tie it back to being more present and being more productive, is if you actually lean into being busy as a superpower of yours and learn how to get efficient and learn how to find these pockets of time, like you're saying, with the 45 seconds to make that protein shake, that's what's going to help you be so consistent. And you're going to feel a hell of a lot better when you actually fuel your body, when you actually get a few extra hours of sleep. I was the person who was like operating on 5 hours of sleep for way too
Hmm.
many years. And when I started to refocus on that and actually change my relationship to, hey, yes, there are times and days and moments where I may even have more inspiration and do want to be on my computer at 10 o'clock at night. Awesome. I'm going to go for it. Like when I'm working on certain things in my business, I'm not saying I don't have this like ironclad schedule, right? Where I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm done at exactly 6 p.m. Again, I'm also not married and don't have children. So I don't necessarily feel as much of that pull. But at the same time, I've also recognized that when I do prioritize the sleep, the ideas that I have, the work that I'm doing is that much better. So
Oh, yeah.
the busyness can be something that you actually use to your advantage, but
Yeah.
it's
Do you
being
have the
real about the
saying
expectations.
that saying like if you want something done, give it to a busy person?
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
true.
Well, here's one thing that I tell a lot of my clients that tends to surprise them. And I don't say this to be mean or to call anyone out. It's just fact. Uh some of the most inconsistent unsuccessful clients I've had as far as building these habits and not being able to get it together and they just didn't follow through with the stuff were people who were, and this isn't a broad stroke, these are just these specific people,
Yeah.
this specific handful of people were all rich stay-at-home wives slash moms. And this is not a broad stroke saying that all stay-at-home moms are like that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying these specific people that I've worked with in the last 10 years, there was a group of them that could not get it together in nutrition, had all the resources, had all the access to me, had all the mindset talks with me, had the workout programs, had the money, had the time, had the motive, all the stuff you need to do it. They just were not ready to make a change. On the flip side of that, some of my most successful clients are women who are CFOs, who also have 3 kids, or who work full time. Or I have one client right now who's doing amazing. She is a very beginner level when it comes to working out. So she doesn't have the experience. She's just learning.
Okay.
She is a mom. She is married and she's working 3 jobs.
Wow.
And she is doing phenomenal. And she is getting in her walks every day. She's starting to implement the working out. She's getting her weekends consistent. And she's the person out of all my clients probably has the best reason to not be doing this stuff. Financially, time-wise, she's literally like one of the reasons she got the 3rd job was to afford coaching. And so when I will go above and beyond for that type of client. You know what I mean? But so it's not time, it's not money. I say that to people all the time too. Like, you think if you had more time, more money, that you'd be the healthiest version of yourself. But realistically, you would just be doing more of whatever you're currently doing. So if you're currently an alcoholic and you had more money and more time, you'd be drinking more. You wouldn't just give up alcohol, right?
No, it's so true. I was smiling so big when you started saying that because I had that exact conversation with somebody yesterday. And I was like, I don't know how to say this in a way that's not going to sound harsh. Like I said the same exact thing that you did. And I have a lot of evidence to back it up too.
Yeah, and again, it's not a broad stroke. It's just these were specific experiences I've had. But I have clients who are very, very busy, who have kids, who are own businesses or manage businesses or have a lot of responsibility, but they make it happen because it really doesn't take as much time or energy as you think it does. But I think as far as what you said about the food blogger, humanizing her when she said that to you, I think what you said about your experience with working a lot and just ordering out or skipping the workout, that humanizes you. It humanizes someone who owns a fitness business. And it's like, listen, I get it. Like I go through that too. So, when you're, we didn't even talk about like how before you started your online business, you were in the group coaching space. You worked at group coaching studios, like, big group classes. What are some of the nutritional mistakes or missteps that you see women make who are in that group class environment? So this could be a group boot camp class or a group spin, whatever it is. What are some of the nutritional mistakes that you see people making that you then help them fix?
Sure. I love this question. It's such a great question. And this has obviously been a hot topic on social media, I would say, for about the past 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
The whole conversation of, is group fitness bad? And it's never that simple. A great coach is always going to tell you it depends. And the challenge that I see from the nutrition perspective in this space that's preventing a lot of people from getting results is when you think about the person who's attracted and this workout is marketed to, if they are this busy person that we're describing who's not getting a lot of sleep and isn't necessarily making the time to make the best choices with their food because they are being reactive, this is where these two things butt heads, because the nutritional mistakes that this person is typically making is because they are not recovered enough from lacking that sleep and good routines in that regard. They also have fears around carbohydrates because so many women do. And you take that recipe and you take somebody who is under recovered and pretty much underfed specifically for that type of workout. I want to be clear, you are going to get stuck in terms of your body composition, in terms of not losing weight. And what I found is to bring the training piece back into it, there's this mental conditioning of like, oh, well, I just should do more. So they immediately go into doing more of these workouts. When in reality, it's like, why don't we rearrange a few things with your food? Specifically, you want to do more? Let's go more protein and more carbohydrates.
Yeah.
And you would also feel a heck of a lot better while doing said workouts.
Yeah. And a lot of times too, right? They have like, they pay 150, 180 bucks and they get unlimited workouts for the month. Right. So they're just like, I'll just do more, I'll just start adding more to my schedule. And they're trying to offset the nutrition mistakes. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure you see too, is when they are, under eating carbohydrates, not eating enough protein, high stress lifestyle, little sleep, doing these workouts that are just, what is it? More stress on your body, more stress on your mind.
Correct.
At some point during the week, that threshold is met where they get burnt out. And then that's when the bad food choices start to pile up. So even if they are
100%.
eating low carb, calorie controlled salads and shakes all week, then the weekend comes. And that's a struggle for a lot of people. So when you're coaching a client who's fits that mold, what are some, initial steps that you would guide them on? So you're talking to someone, they're like, yeah, that sounds exactly like me. What are some either mindset tips or tactical tips you would give them to start going towards the other direction? Oh, and they also have the mindset of, but I love this gym. I love going to this gym.
Yeah. This is great. I love this question. And before I answer that directly, I also want to acknowledge what you mentioned about the spike in calories that's coming from their weekend decisions, because you're exactly correct. For anyone out there who thinks that the reason why they're not losing weight is because they're not eating enough food, let's be super clear based on what Adam just explained. You're not eating enough food from an intentional basis when you're actually looking at it or maybe thinking about it. But then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday roll around. Hello, that is literally half your week that you are really not acknowledging what you're eating. And I get it. Like you've been busy and all of a sudden food becomes your way. Socializing becomes your way to decompress. And I understand that, but we need to be really clear and really honest about the fact that at the end of the day, if you want to lose body fat, it does come down to being in a calorie deficit. And while I do take my clients through intentionally bringing their calories up before they bring them back down, one of the reasons why I do that is first and foremost, I just want to see how you normally eat so that you can see how you normally eat. Yeah. So to kind of prescribe this to someone, the first thing we do inside of the Fitness Fix, and this sometimes makes people uncomfortable because they sign up for the program and they think I'm immediately going to hand them a set of macros and directives on getting, looking at their training and doing all of it at once. I simply ask, spend 7 days tracking your food with no guidance from me. And some people are like, wait, what? Like, why are you telling me what to do? I do the
same thing. Same thing.
And here's why it's so important is because you do not have self-awareness if you're not actually logging what you're eating. For the people who say, I eat healthy and I don't understand why I'm not losing weight, I promise it'll become glaringly obvious if you commit to tracking your food, even if for a week. It doesn't have to be forever. It doesn't even have to be for a few months, but doing it for 7 days and getting that information is so key because let's say, to put some numbers on this, because I think it'll be easier for people to follow, you could be this person who you think you're like, oh, I'm only eating 1,200 calories. It's like, no, you are eating 1,200 calories with the intent to lose weight from like Monday to Wednesday, or let's say Monday to Thursday. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday rolls around. If you're eating over 2,000 calories, what did we just do to that average if almost 50% of your week was actually spent at around that 2,000 plus? 2,000 is probably conservative if you're going out to eat and having drinks. Like, people hear those numbers and they're like, oh, that's so much food. Not if you're having a burger when you go out, right? Like, and a beer, like that can add up real quick. So let's call it almost 3,000 all of a sudden. And I can't do that mental math super fast in my head, but let's say like really on average, it's more like 1,900 calories if we actually split that across the 7 days. This is where the power comes in for you to learn that we could spread 1,900 calories out really differently. And not to mention, if you did that 7 days a week, you wouldn't be starving for the first 4 days of the week where you were like mentally clawing at the idea of like trying to stay under 1200 and feeling like all you can eat is some like sad salad with chicken and no dressing for lunch. Like nobody wants to actually live like that, right? So it's first and foremost really level setting with people of like, what are you truly eating? Because then we can have a much more educated conversation on how to do this in a way that is that much simpler, that much more attractive. And if it's simpler and more attractive, you are going to be more compliant and you are going to be more consistent. Those words are not sexy, but that is the secret to fat loss that you can actually maintain as a true lifestyle forever and ever. So that's really the biggest first step for us.
No, that's a huge first step because I agree with you completely. And honestly, like when I first started coaching nutrition years and years ago, that was a mistake I made. It was like clients would come in, they would give me their stats and I'd be like, okay, these are the macros you should probably eat. And then when, some clients were able to flip that switch and track and hit the macros and then they would see results and some clients weren't. And the more I coach people, the more I realize like the questions that are getting asked are just so basic. It's like, oh, people just they're not even understanding these concepts. Like we have to first get them aware of like, what are you currently doing that needs to change? And I like to call like the big boulders, like what are the big boulders we need to work on first? And that really, really is eye-opening for people when they start tracking. So when people start tracking, I know that the weekend spikes are pretty common. Are there any other like common things that you're seeing with people when they're first coming in? They're like, I eat pretty healthier, and they're tracking. Besides the weekend spikes, are you seeing? I'm sure you probably see like they're not eating enough protein.
Yes.
A lot of women, I find, I don't know if you see this, is they think that carbs are the enemy, but then they start tracking, they find out they're just eating so much fat. They don't really eat a lot of carbs. That's stuff that you see.
It's like a big mystery that people don't realize and I get this question a lot of like, where is that actually coming from? And if we really looked at our food labels a little bit more, with a lot of the snackier type foods, even a protein bar has 8 to 10 grams of fat.
Yeah.
So while you might have best of intentions of grabbing it, right? Because yes, it does have 20-ish grams of protein if it's like a decent one.
Yeah.
Those 8 to 10 grams of fat are in your protein bar. Maybe then it's in some other type of snack food that you're grabbing, and it starts to add up without you recognizing it. Not understanding the difference between different protein options of what could be leaner. Like I love red meat, and I'm not sitting here to say, hey, everybody should only be eating chicken, but if you're not understanding how your foods fit together, it's so much harder for you to make that decision around what is the best fit for me today based on some of these other foods. Because the one thing I will say, I do want to go back to the whole protein conversation in a second, but the one thing I will say that people don't necessarily realize is so many people want to look at their meals in isolation and determine if that was a good choice. And whenever someone asks me the question of like, what's the best option for breakfast? I'm like, I legitimately can't answer that for you unless I know what you're eating for lunch or what you're eating for dinner. And if you plan on having snacks in between, what does that do for the person? It also gives you permission to work in foods that you've deemed as quote unquote bad. Food has no moral compass. If you like chips, let's figure out a way for you to eat some chips. Am I going to encourage you to open the bag and eat straight from the bag? Hell no, because that's usually what's gotten you into the situation that you're in that you don't like right now. But I can teach you how to work those things in by having this appreciation for this bigger picture and zooming out. So we are also really big on pre-planning when it comes to tracking. And I've seen this a lot recently in DM conversations that I'm having with people. There are a lot of people out there who have been taught how to food track, but they haven't been taught this approach that allows them to zoom out over the course of the whole day. And they realize when I explain that to them, like, hey, have you ever tried to like pre-plan a few meals? It's like an unlock for them that they're like, oh, wait a second, this doesn't have to be so difficult or so tedious, because they're also not sitting in their kitchen or standing in their kitchen, like thumbing through MyFitnessPal like this when they're hungry and trying to figure out what to eat. It's like, I'm already hungry. I'm annoyed at this phone. I can't find the food that I want to like track to the exact degree that it is because I couldn't scan it on the label. Yeah, I would give up then too. But if you sat down for 5 minutes every single night before you went to bed, because we all know you're on your phone anyway, make the last thing that you do on your phone, you mapping out your next day. And then you can really start to develop, like I said, this appreciation for what it is that I'm eating for lunch. How is that going to influence my dinner? If you're going out to eat, this is one of the best things you can do, because if you know what restaurant you're going to, or you know what kind of cuisine it's going to be, nobody says you have to track your food in order. Put that in your phone first and then work backwards and plan the rest of your day around that. Those are the features of flexibility with food tracking that I'm just so tired of people saying that food tracking is too tedious or too structured or making somebody too fixated on their macros. That's a choice. You can choose to look at it a different way. And we really pride ourselves on teaching people how to look at it a different way so that they have those aha moments. And to that end, to go back to the protein piece of it, because yes, I do, of course, see that a lot of women think they're eating a lot of protein and it's like 80 grams when really
barely.
Yeah. Like if they're lucky, if they're being semi-intentional. Something else that I've really figured out over the years that's very helpful for people is we don't want to look at this like a mountain that you have to climb. So if somebody's currently eating 80 grams of protein, within the first month of our program, I am not trying to get them to 160, even if 160 is the macro prescription I would like to give them.
Yeah.
We stair step it. So if you can show me that you can hit 80 within the first week of working with us, we're going to take 80 up to 100. Then show me that you can hit 100, because that's also going to help you figure out, all right, 100 grams of protein. That doesn't mean jack shit to some people. Like, what does 100 grams of protein actually look like, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the food choices. So you start to develop an understanding for that. Then the next week we go from 100 to 120. And all of a sudden, this person's doesn't feel intimidated by the fact that you are actually encouraging them to eat more food than they would have when they intentionally dieted in the past. But two, they feel way more successful because they're like, oh, cool, look at me. Like, I am being consistent. And to kind of bring that all together, that also builds up someone's confidence in that if they see these little wins along the way, they're not going to want to throw in the towel as easy as they may feel inclined to do so. If I was like, okay, cool, Adam, you're going to wake up tomorrow and you're going to go from literally 80 grams of protein to doubling it overnight, you're not going to want to do that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I 100%. It's just funny to hear, because it's the exact same process like that I do with my clients, and
that's why we like each other's content.
Exactly. But I think that clients need to hear that, because I think, like, for example, if we're just using us as examples, if someone's on Instagram and they're scrolling and they're like, I really want to hire a coach, Krysta's stuff, I like what she posts, I like what Adam posts, I like what this person posts. If they are good quality coaches, you're gonna find that we pretty much do the same shit with our clients, right? Like, even when you said the inner child stuff and at the beginning, I didn't know you were gonna say that. We didn't talk about that before the recording. I was like, oh yeah, but like we have those same conversations with our clients, and a lot of it is just people come in and they think, okay, there was a transaction of money. I signed up for something. I was super motivated. I'm gonna get this like just perfect plan, and I'm gonna know exactly what to do. And the truth is, it's just there's like a destination we probably want to get to as far as what your optimal lifestyle could look like, but we're not going to get there right away. And I like the gradually building their protein up. I like the tracking your food at first, seeing what you're actually eating, and then tweaking from there. But I find that what a lot of people too is when you said, okay, hey, use 15 minutes at the end of the day at the end of the day to plan your next day. What I found when I was coaching people before I started kind of nipping this in the bud was they were spending that 15 minutes a night tracking what they ate just the day that just ended. So they were still just eating all day mindlessly and then logging it at night and be like, oh my God, I'm 50 grams short of protein. Like, what do I do now? And then I would say, I started having to spell that out and go, do not eat until you log it. Like, log it first. Again, simple, right? But like, most people weren't thinking that. They're just going, oh, and I've even, this is what my presentation was on when I did the Real Coaches virtual summit, was how to basically develop like a meal template for your clients, so that once they have their ranges that they're aiming for, break it down into like, hey, if you like to eat 3 meals a day, this is about how much of each protein you should have, this is about how much of each carb you should have, and kind of give them that resource too. And I still found that I was giving that resource to clients, and they'd get to the end of the week and go, week one, and go, yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how to hit my protein. And I'd go, how about the meal template? And some clients, it would be like 6 weeks in a row, like, do me a favor, follow the meal template for 1 week, just like give it a shot, see how it feels. And then they'd be like, oh wow, that was so much easier. Right. So it's really just building that, like, it's all just skill building and knowledge building. That's what coaching is.
Totally. And I apologize for the background noise, everybody. My
no big
very sweet multi-poo decided that she wants some attention while we were recording. But I couldn't agree with that more. And I love the strategy of meal templates. One way that I ask clients to kind of break that down too is say, hey, if you do have this protein goal that even though we've been working up to it, you're trying to get like to 150 grams. Let's be super mathematical about this. How many times a day do you eat? 3? Cool. I need there to be these mini macro targets that you set for yourself. 50 grams of protein per meal. Boom, you did it. And then all of a sudden they're like, there is nothing more exciting for me than when a client says, wait, like it gets to be that easy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, it does get to be that easy. I last night wrapped up an 8-week nutrition challenge that I was doing at a gym that I partner with here in New Jersey. It's called the Lift Gym. It's an awesome gym. When it comes to group training, they take a very different approach in that they're not loading people up with tons of cardio and really teaching people how to get strong. So it's a team that I really enjoy partnering with because I know that the strength training is such high quality that the opportunity to match it with really good nutrition and get really good quality results in terms of body composition is amazing. And this woman said to us, she was like, I kind of realized from going through this that for years, like literally the last 20 years of dieting, I've been running away from the basics, even though the basics work. So the reason why I've not gotten results is because I've been chasing every fad diet. Whereas what you've taught me in the last 8 weeks by looking at protein, tracking my food consistently, paying attention to sleep and alcohol, those were like the main 5 topics we talked about. Now, all of a sudden, I have this better relationship with food. I'm enjoying cooking again. I can eat the things I want to eat. And it's like an, oh, duh, light bulb kind of moment because there was nothing that I actually said that was like some crazy rocket science. Whereas every other diet she was pursuing in the past had all these like weird, crazy nuances to them.
Yeah. Well, that was a great way to end it, I think. That was a great way to end on a mic drop. I really appreciate your time. This conversation was... I went into it like, excited, but it came to turn out way better than I even expected. So this was great. If people loved what you said, which I'm sure they did, and they want to get some more info from you, where can they find you?
Yes. Well, I'm first going to plug my podcast since we're going to have Adam over there very soon. So stay tuned for that. It is called The FYX with Krysta Huber. And I do spell Krysta with a Y. So I spell FYX with a Y. It's FYX. If you're going to go type it into Apple or Spotify, which it is available on all those platforms that you can listen to, make sure you spell it that way. And then I'm always on Instagram, like probably way too much based on some of the conversation we were having at the beginning of this, but it's a work in progress. My Instagram handle is at the Krysta Huber. And then we also do have a page for the Fitness Fix, which is at the Fitness Fix. So if you guys have any questions or want to know anything more about what I shared, feel free to slide into my DMs. And I love talking about this stuff. Like I could have literally podcasted with you for 3 hours. So I'm excited for us to have you switch seats and you come and do it on my show too.
I love doing my podcast, but I get like more excited to be a guest.
It's
on
fun.
Other people's kind of because the pressure is kind of off.
Yes.
It's like, it's like I get to be asked questions. That's probably some sort of inner child thing too.
It may be.
I like to be the center of attention. People are asking me questions.
Yes. Well, cool. Well, thank you. I really appreciate this. This was a lot of fun.
This was awesome. And I'm looking forward to continuing to connect with you and stay in your network. And this was great. This was awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.